Hello and welcome back. Welcome to you if this is your first time here. Today I'll show you how you can make these simple tea light candle holders using scraps of 2x4. So let's jump right into the video. If that sounds familiar, then you are a woodworker of some sorts. We all keep finding very good reasons to store scraps of wood because we believe at some point we'll find something useful to put it into. And today we have one of such justification of why we keep scraps of wood. Only that we're going to make it a little bit unique with these 15-degree angles. So I'm just sorting through the pile there to see which ones are close in length, and it's not like I need exact lengths, but I just wanted to get an idea of what the lengths are to determine how many pieces I'll actually need. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I'm going to wing it as I go through this. But I know what the end goal is, so it should make it easier. So once I got the pieces that will make the list, I went to the table saw and started putting those 15-degree angles on both sides of the 2x4, just to give it a cleaner look than having the rounded edges. And I didn't want to go with just a squared edge, just to add some character to the end product. Stick around to the end where I will show you what two different sellers are asking for this product for, and since it's not exactly what is on their store, you could ask for a little bit more than they are asking for, assuming that you're able to build this and you're able to market it. I used 15 degrees for this one, but I'm guessing you could push it to 20 or 25 degrees. But it looks nice with the 15 degrees, so that's what I'm going with here. So I started doing this on the table saw and cutting the boards to the 45-degree angles, which will then be used to put the rectangle together. And then I quickly realized that it was going to be a lot challenging on the table saw, so I moved over to the miter saw, set the miter saw blade to 45 degrees and did the cuts. It went a lot faster on the miter saw. As far as the length or the height of these candle holders go, it's up to you what heights you're comfortable with. I don't think there's any standard height. I was going to go with making 3 of these, but I ended up with just doing the 2 large ones because I think something is off with the angles on my matter, so I'll have to figure out what's going on. With the shorter piece that I did, I think something was off because I couldn't get them to be an exact 45-degree angle. So back to the height, you can make it as tall as you want it to be. It's optional. I don't think there's any standard height. Maybe there is, but you could always make it unique and give it a unique height, like 5.5 inches tall, 7.5 inches tall, or 9.3 inches tall, or 11.75 inches. You get the picture. It's whatever you would like it to be. From this angle is where you can see the uniqueness that the 15 degrees adds to this this project, or to this build. You don't really see the uniqueness of the angle when you just look at it from the front, because it looks like a flat piece. But from this angle, well, just before I added the top piece, you could see the angles there. And when you flip it to the back as well, you can see that it has a bevel on the back, giving it this unique look, rather than just a flat look without any angles. So I'm guessing as a result of these angles, it was a little bit challenging to use clamps to hold it together. I guess you could use spring clamps to hold the angles together, but I didn't want to go through the hassle of attaching 8 of those. I mean, it could have worked out just fine, but I just used brad nails to hold it together, and then use the clamps to get the angles tight fitted, because it was moving about with the glue that was in there. So I used the clamps after adding some brad nails. I used the clamps to just get it into the shape. Still not a perfect 45. Like I said, I need to fix the angle on my miter, so I need to figure out what's going on with it. After the glue has dried up, it was Now time to drill the holes for the tea lights. And apparently I had a smaller Forstner bit, well, small in the sense that it wasn't wide enough to hold the tea lights that I had. So I tried to make it work. I had the Forstner bit wiggling around to open up the hole that I drilled there. But then later on I went to the store and got a better size. Well, I got a 1 3/4 drill bit, which is more than enough, and just drill the second one with that. But I'm guessing you could get away with a 1 5/8 Forstner bit to drill the holes. But like I said, the one that I used there, I think that was a 1 3/8 Forstner bit. I just had it going in a wiggly motion to open up the hole there, and it worked out just fine. And then it was just time to sand it and then sting it. If you're liking the video so far and you're getting some value from it, please click the like button and share it with someone else you know would like to make one of these. And if you do end up making one of these, please share it with us here on this channel. I'd love to see what yours look like. I want to believe that you can make it even better than this. So I wish you all the best with your build, and until the next video, stay blessed, and I hope you have a tangible experience of God's love. Go build something and have fun whilst doing it. I'll see you in the next video. So here's someone who has a set of 3 listed for $75, and another person who has, it looks like a set of 2, or maybe it's just a single listing for $29.99. So you get the idea. You can price it very good. I will ask for $25 for one if I were selling it. So good luck with yours. If you have been doing woodworking for even just a little while, or you've been doing some DIY here and there, you will definitely have scraps of wood. And for most of us, we keep stacking those. You can see I have a bit of those in the corner there, hoping that someday I'll have the perfect use to put them into. Well, today's video is one good example. I'm taking scraps of 2x4 and making them into something unique or beautiful, or whatever you might want to call it. So let's jump right into the process. So as you might have gathered from the description or from the intro, what we're trying to get here is to make a perfect star, and we need 5 pieces that needs to be cut into this diamond shape, as you can see on the right hand side there. So we're starting off with a 45-degree angle, and then to get the tip or the top part of the diamond, we'll need the 2 sides to be cut to an angle of 31.6. The miter saw that I'm using has a stop at 31.6. It also has a stop at 45 degrees, as most miter saws do. Well, most miter saws that have a stop. So let's start with cutting at 45 degrees, and then you'll see me moving the miter stop to 31.6 degrees to do the top sides of the diamond shape. I will be showing the measurements as I go, but these pieces I'm cutting them at a length of 9 inches, and then to get the arms of the star, I will basically cut this in half at 4.5 inches, and then make the 31.6 degree angles on those halves. So for each one of these 9-inch pieces that I'm cutting, I'll get two sides of the star. So remember, like I said in the start, the star will be made up of 5 points. So essentially you'll end up with 6 points based on the method that I'm using. So the first 9-inch piece has been cut, and then I'm going to cut that into 2 at 4.5 inches. And then the process is the same for the next 9-inch pieces. So as you can see, those 9-inch cuts were made at 45 degrees on both sides. When we get to doing the points on the stars, that's when the 31.6 degrees will be used to get the angle, which will allow all of the points to nest together and give you a perfect center of the star. So I'm using the remaining piece from the first 9-inch that I cut to serve as a stop block to keep the pieces that I'll be cutting at the 4.5 inch that I need to cut the 9-inch into. So the two 4.5 inch pieces that I need to cut, I'm using what was left over from my initial cuts as a stop block. I need to have a way to hold that piece together to keep my hand away from the blade. I just use a scrap piece of wood to hold it from the top, but better still, later on you will see me using a jig or a tool that I made out of that same scrap piece of wood and added a material that adds some friction to hold the pieces onto the miter saw so my fingers are not close to the blade when it's making the cuts. And later on I'll share a video of that jig or tool that I made. Now it was time to move the miter saw to the 31.6 degrees to make the angle cuts on the top sides of the diamond shape. And that's it. I got my two first trial pieces cut to the angles and they look good, so I grabbed another piece of scrap wood and I'm ready to cut the remainder of the pieces. As you can see, after cutting the first one, I just used it to mark out the spot to cut the next one. Now that I'm going to be cutting a few more pieces, it was a good time to add a clamp with my stop block there to make sure I'm paying attention to the cuts and not having to support the stop block with my hand while trying to make the cut as well. So basically I made this hold down stick using a scrap piece of 1x4, and I added non-slip silicone to it to add some friction to help hold down the pieces whilst I'm cutting the angles. So I have a total of 6 cut, but I only need 5. So this is basically how you put them together. I'm going to make another one, but add in some more detail to the sides of it. So stick around and we'll jump right into that. So I'm onto my sort of nicely packed pile of leftover 2x4, and I'm looking for some decent pieces that I will use for this next version of the star. So once I found a good one, I cut off whatever ends were of the piece, and then I took it to the table saw to rip the ends of it, because I was trying to go off a straight edge on this one as opposed to just the normal factory edge of the 2x4. So I cut off just a little piece off the ends of the 2x4, so that will actually reduce the width of the 2x4 from the 3.5 inches that it normally is to, I think it was probably around 3 inches wide, which is fine. The size doesn't really matter, as you will see. And in this next step, I'm using my router to add a beveled edge to all 4 sides of the 2x4. This you could potentially do on a table saw. You can just set the angle that you prefer on the table saw and make sure the blade is lowered to the height that will compensate to give you this angle on the 2x4. Obviously you will have to set the you'll have to set the rib fence at a width to allow you to get the angle that you want to cut. Maybe I'll do another one where I'm using the table saw as opposed to just using a router. So the same process here as with the first one that did not have the bevel sides. The lengths are at 9 inches wide, and then I cut those into half at 4.5 inches wide to make the points of the star. But there is another step coming up that was not on the first one, which if you saw one of my last videos where I did the lighted tree, you might pick up what's going on. So I cut all 6 of the pieces, and now I'm going to use 5 of them to put the star together. As usual, I'm using my go-to wood glue, the Tight Bond Quick and Thick. It works perfectly for this. It dries really fast and it dries clear. So you can be as generous with the glue as you would like to make sure that all the pieces are held together with a very strong bond. In fact, after putting them together, I added some extra glue on the top and all of the sides, the the joints that come together, I put a little bit more glue on there just to add some more strength to the adhesion. And this is, I must say, this was one where I did not want to use any nails or screws to hold it together, because I trust that this glue will hold it perfectly together, and it did. I actually was thinking of adding some CA glue or some CA glue type adhesive to it, but once it was dry there was no need. It held really well together. This step is totally optional. I like the dark walnut, but you can leave it as it is, natural, or paint it white like I did with the other one. So it's totally up to you. For me, the dark walnut matches all the furniture in my living room where this one will be going for Christmas. And this is the first version that I made. This one was from some really damaged 2x4. So I'm painting it white, and since only one side will be displayed at any time, it is totally fine. But I painted both sides, all sides of it white. And that's an option you can utilize as well. I'm using chalk linen white by Rustic. It turns out really nice. Now it was time to add the string lights onto it. This one is a little bit tricky because of all the different angles you can find. If you have like pieces of 1/8 plywood, you can use it to hold it in there with some CA glue. I just temporarily held it together using transparent tape, which I think works just fine. And since this is for my house, I don't think it matters. But if this was something I was making to sell, then I'll think of some other ways to make it more presentable. But like I said, this one I'm making for myself, for my own house, so I'm just using the transparent tape there, which you would barely see, and it helps too with the fact that when it gets lighted, you don't even notice that the tape is there. Now this next step is also optional. You can have the stars standing on top of a table or next to your Christmas tree, on the dining table or on the mantle, wherever you want it standing. But I want it to be hung on the wall. You can hang it over the mantle, you can hang it over your TV, which is what I'm doing. That's where this one is going to go. Or you can hang it, somewhere close to your dining room or your living room. You can also have it hanging on your hallway or in the bedroom. So wherever you'd like it to be, you can hang it there. And that's the flexibility with having the ability to be able to hang it on the wall there. So I started by ripping off the rounded edges so that I can end up with straight edges, since I will be gluing pieces of the wood together. My guess is you can just use them as is, but I wanted straight edges because that's the look I was going for, to end up with some form of industrial look to it. So for this one, I went with 12-inch long by 8 inches wide. It is one where you can make it as long as you would like. I had to limit the length to accommodate for the length of the string light that I'll be using. And yeah, you can make it as long as you want. You could buy LED strips that are long enough to fit whatever length you choose to go with. So this step is optional. I just added magnets because I had them handy, but it adds additional spots to hold the keys, and I will use those for keys that I use a lot of, on a regular basis. It's easy to grab them and go. So just in case you're curious, I'm using a little piece of freezer paper there to hold the clamp onto the magnet whilst it dries. This glue dries pretty quickly. I just wanted to make sure that the glue does not go on the clamp, and the freezer paper just works out just fine. So from this point, I believe everything else is self-explanatory, or should be clear, I hope. If you do have any questions, do leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. But I'm using the Craig jig there to add pocket holes that I'll use to attach the back and the top of the shelf together using Craig screws. I'm using 2.5-inch screws. And then once they attach together, I sanded it, and then I stained it, and then I'll explain the process I used to hang it on to the studs. Remember, all you need is just a little bit of faith and some DIY action to tackle any DIY project. Adding the wire or string light to it is optional, totally optional, but I think it will come in handy. Plus, it adds a decorative look to it. On one of the videos where I used the string lights, someone had suggested using hot glue to hold the string lights onto the wood. I think it works out just fine. And that's it. I hope this inspires you to go and build one like this, or even one better than this. And please share what you build with us here and let us cheer you on. So here's just a quick example of something similar. This is just a key holder. It does not have the top shelf, but they're asking for $43.28. You could ask for a little bit more or ask for $45. It's up to you how much you want to ask, provided you're able to market it well. Good luck, and I wish you all the best. So what I'm doing now is trying to get pairs of the scrap pieces of 2x4 based on the length of each of them. I'm trying to put together pairs of them that are about the same length. So after getting a bunch of pairs, I just got random numbers of pairs of the 2x4s together, and then I started gluing them together. I was using my go-to glue, which is thick, and I realized quickly that was going to take a longer time to put them together, so I grabbed another bottle of fast setting glue, and then I started gluing those together. By the way, welcome back. And welcome if this is your first time on this channel. Thank you for checking out this video today. I hope you'll find some value in it. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and share it with somebody else, and let me know in the comments. Thank you. As you will probably notice, I didn't bother cutting them down to the same lengths before gluing them together. That's something we'll get to, cutting them down to the lengths later on. I don't think it matters at this point. So once all the pieces have been glued together, the next step is to just clamp them together. I don't have a parallel clamp at the moment, but I'm just using a regular bar clamp to clamp them together. I used a number of bar clamps to clamp them together and left them for, I believe it was a day or two. I then went ahead and added a little bit more glue to each of the pairs just to add some more stability to them. Now with the glue dried up on all of them, it was time to cut the edges or the sides of them to make them straight. I tried a couple different methods to cut those. I started with a table saw, but then I quickly realized that lifting the blade up too high would be very dangerous, especially when I'm doing a number of cuts. So I gave it a try first with the table saw, I raised the blade up to the full height, as you would see me do there, and then I tried cutting. It was actually a lot of stress on the table saw to begin with, and then I tried using the bandsaw as well. So I wasn't particularly comfortable with the table saw. I'm more comfortable with the bandsaw because there's a lot more control over the blade on the bandsaw. This would have worked just fine. I just realized it would probably take me twice as much of the time to cut those edges off. I even tried a third option to get those sides to be flat. I mean, you could potentially just sand them down, but that's also going to take a long time. So I'm back on the table saw. I started cutting it with the full blade height again, and then I thought, you know, this will go a lot faster if I just reduce the blade to half the height, and that's what I ended up doing. I reduced the blade, I lowered the blade down to half the height of the boards there, and that went, you can see it's going pretty much faster than the full height of the blade, and I ended up doing all the pieces that way. And like I said, I tried one other option to get the sides to be flat, which you'll see me doing in just a moment here. So the third alternative was to use a planer to plane the other sides. This will be a good time to subscribe to this channel if you've not already done so. Thank you. So once I had both sides flattened, now it was time to start cutting them to the length or height that I would want them to be. As you can see there, I have a stop block that will allow me to cut the boards at the same height. You can be as creative as you can with the angles. I just went with 30-degree angles for each one of them, but you can be as creative as you want to. Just make sure you have one flat surface so that when you're laying them all down, you'll end up with a uniform layout. With all the pieces cut, it was time to start putting them together to come up with layouts that I like. I ended up with rectangles or pyramids. Well, they look like pyramids, they're just rectangles, and some beveled edges of square, one side with the beveled edges. But as you can see, they closely mimic 4x4, but I think just using the two different pieces, you can see that some of the wood grain, they're different, which is what adds some more character to using a 2x4 as opposed to a 4x4, where the wood grain will all be in one pattern for each piece. But when you have two different pieces of the 2x4 like this, it allows you to get a lot more wood grain patterns, which makes it even unique. And I could see where you could potentially ask for more money for this, because it's, first of all, it's a lot more work than just using a regular 4x4 and having those contrasting end grains, you know, depending on the finish that you use, will add a lot more uniqueness to it. At this point, you can just use a natural wood stain to stain this, so you have the actual natural grain of the wood there. Well, I went ahead with 3 different color stains. Starting off with weathered oak, and then I used dark walnut on the outside, well, the left and right sides, and then on the 2 middle, top and bottom, I used, I believe it was special walnut. I can't remember what it was, but it's a contrasting color to add some more character to it. The next day, with the stain all dried, I just glued them together using the quick and thick wood glue, my go-to glue for these types of projects, and glued all the pieces together. I used a 1/4 inch plywood to hold all of it together. As you probably noticed, there's an overlap just to hide the 1/4 inch plywood when you hang it on the wall. An hour later, it was all dried. I can pick them up. And then I added triple glaze to it, and you can see as I started applying the triple glaze, you can see the end grains popping out and bringing out the color. And here I'm just adding hardware to it so that it can be hung on the wall. Found a perfect spot to hang it on, and there you have it. And before I give you a closer look, let me show you what this is going for on Etsy, just to give you an idea of, you know, what you could potentially ask for. So their basic one, which is 18 inches by 3 foot, they're selling for $375. And they have it going up to like $2,000. So you could potentially make this and sell for a minimum of $100. Remember, you're using multiple end grains there, which makes it unique. So don't price it too low, but have fun with it. And until the next video, God bless you. Remember, you just need a little bit of faith and some DIY action.